How has the power of long and short positions changed after Bitcoin fell back? If you are interested in this question, please follow me. Let's start from the daily line. Now let's look at the daily line. If we look at the closing price of the K line, that is to say, if we don't care about the hatched part of the solid part, we can clearly draw a position around 29,800. I personally think that the position of 29,700 will be a little more accurate. We can find it a few times before. The real part of the K line is perfectly closed above this line, until we break below it. You can see that we failed to go up in one test, and then we couldn't go up in yesterday's test. In fact, we are at the daily line level. This exchange is also effective when we switch to 4 hours. You can find that it also shows the effective exchange at 4 hours. So I think it is very effective at this position. Then yesterday the result of the test is a failure. So our test failed this time. He is not only targeting us. What about this test? Let's take a look. We mentioned before that we are now near the trend line. After reaching the trend line, we touched it. But will we start the next wave of rise after touching the trend line like we did before? If it will open, then we must be chasing more here, right? It will open. Let's take a closer look. First, let's take a closer look at this part. When we were talking about the market yesterday, in fact, the K line yesterday hadn't been closed yet. Let's just say it bluntly. After the decline, we started to fall until the market reached our current level. In fact, we can compare it with the previous waves of rise. In fact, when we first started to rise, it was usually very consistent. That is, the yang line appears very continuously. It does not appear intermittently. Even if there is a callback in the middle, or even if there is an adjustment, a rest, or a stop, it will not pull back too deeply. You can see that we are in this position, and he usually does not use it. It doesn't take too long. It's just a negative line, and its fall is not large. So we can compare our current market. In fact, the fall of ours is compared with our rising K line. It is said that the magnitude of his fall is actually quite large. And our trend is not very continuous. After 2 positive lines, he immediately closed a negative line, which is relatively good in the early stages of our previous waves. If we compare it. In fact, there are gaps. As you can see last time, he also walked 3 or 4 in a row. Which is better, the upper and lower shadow lines are relatively small. Wow, this is very healthy. And the quantity can it also appeared that there is no callback in the middle? If not, there is almost no small level callback. But the small level callback is actually very, very small. In our current market, you can actually find that it is similar to what we said earlier. The situation is not very consistent. So I will think that our test failed this time. In fact, it is definitely not a good thing for the bulls. It can mean that even if we expect the rise of the bulls, it does not mean that it is completely impossible. Even after our small wave of callbacks. But we are long in this wave of rises starting from this wave of rises. Hey, his possibility is much smaller. In other words, we still need if we want to go long. We still need time, shocks, and find an early stage of rising. And we need to come out again, then we have the opportunity to look at the current market. We are in this position. He does not have such a huge amount. When it appeared, it was really difficult for us to be sure. Well, I personally had a bottom position of a long position before. Now, I have considered the recent K lines and gradually lightened it up because the amount of energy has not appeared. And the magnitude of our callback is actually not small. Judging from the magnitude of the decline in the amount of energy on the K line, this range is not small. So I would think that if you go long, you need to wait. If we consider the short position. Of course, let's draw a conclusion first. I think the possibility of us continuing to fluctuate here is the greatest. It will continue to fluctuate for a while. Because the strength of the long and short positions feels quite balanced. I didn't say which side. There is a comparative advantage. If we insist on which side has the advantage. The bears have a slight advantage. But I personally don't look at the plunge. Because we are actually going to plummet. Then our short sell trend must have been brewing for a while. It's time, but we have not seen this wave of shorts from the disk. He has already started this obvious distribution process. We haven't seen it yet. If we have seen it, we will definitely see it. There will definitely be a negative line of energy. But now it feels that the long and short are evenly matched. Even if we look at the whole box, the bull's energy is still slightly dominant. In fact, when we go to the top, what do we usually do? The process is usually that the volume of the bull starts to decay. And we start to go through a process of shrinking to the volume of the bulls. In the end, we will slowly increase the volume of the shorts, until we finally usher in a sharp drop. In the past few waves of the market, we have always followed such a script. It seems that we can review our past a little bit. For example, when we were at the top, we followed this process. Let's take a look. At that time, we were going long. He slowly began to shrink. No matter how much it goes up, we can't get a lot of energy. In the end, our negative line began to increase the amount of energy. In the end, we ushered in a sharp drop. I think it's a classic example. It's when we distributed at the top here in the early stage. The same is true for the bulls. The volume can start to deplete, exhaustion, depletion, and then the shorts start to increase the volume. And then finally usher in a sharp drop. We used to follow such a script. Now, if we look at the daily line, at least I personally don't seeing that there will be an immediate plunge. I think the probability of an immediate plunge is very low. Because we haven't seen one yet. The bulls have slowly shrunk. But the Yin has the advantage. And released a large amount of energy. I haven't seen it yet. There is no obvious distribution process. I don't think it's good. Let's cut it to a smaller level. If we cut it to 4 hours, we can find out that our trend line has touched for consecutive in the past. This time includes our previous positions. Here, 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 we have 4 consecutive contact points. Yesterday, we tested twice and failed twice in a row. I believe that there must be many people chasing these 2 times. After chasing multiple orders, this group of people has been trapped. So now the bulls are in the process of being trapped. In fact, at this time, if the bulls really want to pull the market, if it is a resistance pull, I believe that when they break through, they don't need to trap themselves. The less people get on the car, the more beneficial it is to pull the market. Then why does he press the disc back? This is very strange. So I think that the current market is actually not beneficial to both long and short sides. Well, if we really want to talk about the long and short, the short position is a little bit more beneficial. But I personally don't see a sharp drop. And the continued shock is the most likely situation for this market at present. Well, let's take a look at the CPI data. In fact, we just talked about the CPI in the last few times, the data. Its continuous impact is reducing the fluctuation, reducing the impact, and reducing the impact. After that, we may not need to think about the CPI. Because we used to when doing CPI. For example, hey, the CPI may be announced. So we may not make contracts because there will be great fluctuations. Now it may not be necessary to consider this factor. Because its fluctuations are 1% or even less than 1%, 1 to 2%. Fluctuations of less than 1% are definitely within the normal range of fluctuations. And the CPI may not be so important to us in the future. You can also see our actual situation this time. The value is also slightly lower than the predicted value. But the increase rate is very, very limited, about $100. You are very welcome. You can help my video, like, subscribe and share. Turning on the little bell is the biggest thing for me. If you want Bybit, you just need to click any of my videos to KYC and deposit $100. And you will be given a Bitcoin contract position worth $1,000 immediately. This is the real contract position. If you make money, you can directly withdraw the currency. Thank you very much. Bye everyone.